What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Suge Nasty from Shook Earth Media, and today we're back with another Walking Dead review. This is Season 7 of Season 11 called Promises Broken. And overall, I would say that this episode is kind of a middle-of-the-road episode. It very much just continues the storylines from before. There's nothing that really stands out or is more memorable. Like last week we had the Gollum dudes that are really memorable and was a standout part of the storyline. We don't really have anything like that this week. It just kind of continues where we left off. And it's one of those necessary episodes. If I was more engaged in the storyline overall, with the Reapers and all that, I would be a bit more positive. But, overall, it's just kind of a meh. That's where I'm at with this episode. And, right off the bat, we start with this scene with Maggie, as I said a few weeks ago. We got Negan and Maggie debating tactics. And, again, I was kind of, done with the storyline, and this argument doesn't really do anything new in that regard. It's just like, hey, we should have had a plan going into this, and I definitely feel like we should have had more of a plan for fighting the Reapers, especially because we find out in this episode that the place the Reapers are occupying is actually where Maggie and the people were staying. So I really do think that they should have had more of a plan going into this, and it makes our group kind of look silly. Negan's the only one talking sense, and I'm just kind of over that conflict, but we do get some interesting stuff with that in this episode. After that argument, we have somebody walking in who supposedly Cole knows, and I don't know if we're supposed to be attached to Cole at this point, but I talked about last week how his character kind of seems pointless to me because he looked like this cold, detached, ruthless killer when he was first introduced, and now he's just crying all the time, and I don't know, it's not working for me. This supposedly is somebody that he was friends with. There's something. I'm not going to even bother to go back and listen to it because it has no emotional impact because we don't really know that much about Cole. We don't know about the people that he's crying over, so the emotional impact kind of falls flat, We had the moment in the pilot episode with Morgan, but we'd already become attached to Morgan at that point. They did a lot of work in that episode to make us like Morgan. They didn't really do a lot of that with Cole so far, so So yeah, and just the coincidence that this one of Walker just happens to be somebody they know. I mean, we get a lot of coincidences in this show, and it gets to be a bit much. It makes a bit more sense later when they find a stash of walkers that they had placed there, that there would be somebody there that they know. So that seems a bit more believable, but I don't know why we had to double dip on the walkers that Cole recognizes. We have this scene and then we got another scene later. It kind of, if there was going to be any emotional impact, it would have been the one later, I would think, and not this. So I don't know why we double dipped on that. It just seems a little redundant. Okay, and then we get Eugene here and our crew in the Commonwealth. They're doing work assignments to make up for breaking a law last episode, or 2 episodes ago, actually. And then we get Ezekiel dealing with his condition. I suppose it's cancer that he has, and he's starting to feel woozy. He's basically a liability in this scene. He puts Princess in danger. There's a part where he pushes a walker towards her, which maybe if that was coordinated, that was their plan, but it really didn't seem that way, and he's passing out, and yeah, like I said, he's a liability. He's either going to get himself killed or he's going to get somebody else killed if he keeps doing this, and they eventually convince him to go to the hospital, and that's all well and good. I thought this scene played off well. Now, he had this scene with Princess, and I feel like they have a genuine friendship, and it started last season, but they've only really known each other a couple weeks at this point, I think. And she's like, Ezekiel, I love you, but you need to back off me or something like that. And do they really love each other yet? I mean, I don't know. Don't they need to build that trust? It seemed a little not realistic. I don't even think we see characters that have known each other for years at this point saying I love you to each other. So it just seems I don't know. It seems a little odd, but that's okay. And then we get Yumiko talking with this fellow here. I just kind of want to see the meeting with Pamela or like move along here. Commonwealth storyline is probably my favorite part of the season overall. Like the only major storyline going on that I like want to know more about. Still, like these scenes. I mean, they're important, but it's not really like it's not lighting me up or anything. Then we get this scene with Daryl bumming this guy a cigarette. And honestly, this scene, if I was editing this, I would have cut this out. It does absolutely nothing. There's like no purpose to this scene, so I would have cut it for sure. Now, this part of the episode, I'm a big fan of. We have Gabriel doing some kind of like prayer for the dead, which I do like, and I like that he's still playing the role of the priest, but his beliefs are kind of confusing me. It's like, does he believe in God or not? I don't understand. And like, why is he a priest if he doesn't believe in God? And like, I don't know. It's kind of confusing. I would have rather he just kept his faith and all that, and they really kind of went away from that, and he's not acting terribly moral most of the time. And I mean, you can make biblical justifications for warfare and for defending oneself. So I would have preferred to see that as opposed to like him going against his faith. Not that I'm like terribly religious or anything like that. It just like I just don't really know what they're trying to do with his character. Like, why is he doing this prayer if he doesn't believe? Like, a few episodes, I think ago, he was like, "Oh, God's not here" or something. It's like, does he believe or not? I don't know. What's the point of that? Anyways, I like this scene though, and I especially like how Negan is talking in this scene. He's talking like his old self, and it's a no-brainer that they should be doing the whisper trick. That's just a tool that they have in their bag at this point. So of course, like that's the only weapon that they have, the only way that they can succeed, and it seems like this was Negan's idea. And I like how she's like, "This isn't fun," and then Negan's like, "Not with that attitude." I mean, I love that line, and it's like Negan coming back to his old self, and that's great to see. So I'd like to see more of that, please, more of that. And then we get Pope yelling at his people, and it's like Leia standing up to him, and again, I mean, we have this generic villain at this point, and he's just yelling at his people, and like Leia's talking later in the episode about how he's like a father figure, and honestly, it would have done better to show more of that side of him than just generic angry yelling dude at this point. And yeah, I don't care about this group at all. We know that they're not going to survive the next episode. I mean, let's be honest. I don't care about this relationship between these two. I never did, and this episode doesn't change my mind. And honestly, I guess they're trying to do the same thing they did with the Saviors, where we try to understand the point of view of the Reapers, but it's just not really working for me in this case. So, and then we get this scene with them training Maggie in the ways of the Whisperers. I like this scene a lot. This scene gets a thumbs up for me. And it seems like a no-brainer. And honestly, this should have been their plan going in. And it makes no sense that they didn't do this earlier. I don't know what their plan was going in. They're just like, oh, we'll just go there and then it'll all work out fine. They didn't have any attack plan. And it's just like, what the hell, Then we get Gabriel staking out the Reaper compound. And he's looking for something. A nice touch is they do a point of view shot with the whole iris around the lens, so you're seeing through his one eye. And at first I was like, why can't we see two of them? And it's like, oh, of course, he's blind in one eye. So that was a nice touch. I did appreciate that. And then we have this guy praying, and again, like the religious element with the Reapers, again, it kind of falls flat to me because, again, like I said, you can make it biblical justification for warfare and stuff, but I don't see these guys as being very justifiable in any moral capacity. They just murder people on sight, and they still think they're this righteous, like, warriors of God, and it doesn't really track for me. One of their people dies, and they're like crying, and they're like, "Oh my God!" But they kill a bunch of people and hang them up, in the rafters, and that's perfectly acceptable. Then we get Yumiko talking to her brother about why he's hiding the fact that he's a surgeon. And I think at this stage that he is hiding something. That's the only way it makes sense to me. If it's really like he was saying, oh, I don't want life to be like how it was, and it's like, uh, there's an apocalypse going on, right? I mean, life how it was probably looks amazing in comparison. I don't know if that's really the reason why he doesn't want to be a surgeon anymore. It's kind of lame to me and doesn't seem terribly realistic in a world where there's so much suffering that he wouldn't try to do anything to alleviate that. He's looking very selfish. I mean, he has all these skills and I don't know, it doesn't work for me. If that's the case, he's a selfish character. I don't care about him at all. So I don't know what they were going for with that. And then he gets arrested, and I'm assuming it's because Yumiko revealed his secret that he is a doctor, and they're going to force him to be a doctor. And it would have made more sense to me if he started talking about how doctors here are really mistreated. I mean, that would have made a lot more sense than I didn't like the job how it was, and that's all well and good if he wanted to do something else with his life instead. But in the context of an apocalypse, it just seems exceedingly selfish that he thinks making cakes is a better use of his time than trying to save people's lives. So I can think of even more storylines, maybe like a doctor failed to save somebody and then that person like did some vigilante justice. Like there's all these reasons they could have given him not to want to be a surgeon, and they go with that. And then we get Yumiko confronting this guy, and of course he reveals like, oh, he's only helping them out so that she can do stuff for him later, which makes perfect sense to me. I will say, she came up very aggressive in this scene, and I mean, she's in no state to be making demands, and I think she's smart enough to know that. So I feel like her character should have been using something as leverage. I feel like she's not really acting like a lawyer. And then we get them on the road searching for Daryl's people, and there's this weird like color correction going on. It's like a very blue tint. I don't like the look of it, honestly. And I think they're still using digital cameras at this point. I much preferred it when they were shooting on 16 millimeter. So we got them on the road, and then they run into a person, and then Pope tells them to kill the people, but then Leia ends up not killing them, and then Daryl euthanizes the wife that is sick and dying and all that. And I mean, again, we've had storylines like this before, and we know that where this is going is very predictable, so it didn't really do a lot for me. There isn't really the emotional impact that I would want in a scene like this. Of course, it does show that Leia's a bit more moral than the rest of the Reaper crew. But if that's the case, why is she still with them? Why does she care about them? Why is she okay with killing so many other people? I mean, the Reapers just kill people on sight. They've been doing it for a long time. They hang dead bodies by their feet. So I don't get why all of a sudden she has a conscience. It doesn't really make sense to me, and that's part of the reason why this character does not work for me at all. And then we get this actually great scene with Maggie and Negan, where they talk about what happened and why Maggie's so upset. And Negan discusses it from his own perspective and uses the current situation to elucidate the fact that he had a very good reason to do what he did to Maggie's husband. And, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, and he's using the current situation that with Maggie losing all these people to show that, hey, I lost people when you guys invaded the satellite station. Those people had families, loved ones, girlfriends, etc. And again, this scene is a no-brainer, and it's one of the best scenes in the episode for sure. This scene I feel like should have happened episodes ago. It was a nice twist that Negan's like, yeah, if I had to do things again, I would do things differently, but I would kill all of you that time. Which makes sense because obviously things didn't work out for his group by leaving them alive. It's a bit surprising that he would say that, for sure. I will say some of these close-ups I didn't really care for. I mean, this shot is a bit too close up. And then they do this side angle with Negan, and these side angles, they make it look a lot less personal, so you're a lot less emotionally invested in what's happening. So I don't think that this shot was very good, and they relied on it too much. But that's a nitpick. But that's what we do on this channel. We nitpick. That's what I do. Okay? So, yeah. If you don't like nitpicking, you're in the wrong place. Then we got this cool pile of dead bodies. I mean, this is just a great effect-wise. I feel like being anywhere near this would just be this horrendous smell, so it wasn't like terribly realistic from that point. They would be like, oh god, like this would be the worst thing you've ever smelled in your entire life, you know. So that the fact that they're just casually talking, I don't know, you know. And then we get Ezekiel, and it feels like the real Ezekiel is back. He's talking like how he used to, and this was nice and refreshing to see. But it is like they couldn't have just resolved the cancer thing in one hospital visit, could they? If that is the resolution, it's a bit abrupt, and this storyline that they've been building for a long time is just over like that. I don't think that's the case, but then if that's not the case, I don't get why he's acting like this. And then we get this scene of Eugene and fake Stephanie. She's not the real Stephanie. But yeah, there's two people on a date, and of course it is Milton's son, whose name I'm forgetting right now, but he's a big driver of the conflict going forward. And overall, I do like this scene. They take out the walkers that are coming in. Also, Eugene was like crying so much and like so afraid a few episodes ago, and now he's just bravely waltzing into battle. I get that like he's not that afraid of walkers at this point because he's dealt with so many, but he punches this guy in the face when like a few episodes ago he was like, I don't know, just crying with fear so much. So I don't know. Again, the consistency, I don't know that it's really there with Eugene. Eugene punches him in the face because he's acting like a jerk, even though that they saved his life. So this is Governor Milton's son, and he's a complete douchebag, and we don't like him. And I think they did a pretty good job at establishing his character right off the bat. And yeah, the fact that he's acting so entitled and acting like, oh, you ruined our date because you saved our life. You know, it's a great conflict. Although I don't quite understand where the private security is at this point and why Eugene had to be the one to step in. But yeah, and it's also good to illustrate the fact that the citizens of the Commonwealth are just not accustomed to seeing walkers being dispatched, which to our crew just seems like such an alien concept at this point. And this actor does a really good job with this character. So, and I like this conflict between them and seeing her freak out over, again, her life being saved. She should be saying thank you, but she's acting like it's the worst day of her life, and maybe it is. Now, in this scene, we get the real Stephanie. This is the real Stephanie. Last episode, or a few episodes ago, she ordered ice cream at the ice cream truck, and she went for Rocky Road, which, if you remember back to her conversations on the radio with Eugene, she talked about how Rocky Road was her favorite flavor. So it seems pretty obvious that it is the real Stephanie, and they did a switcheroo so that presumably the operative would be less inclined to help them, which it's weird that the fake Stephanie is the one who helped them facilitate committing a crime. So I don't really, you know, it's kind of confusing. I don't know why they had to complicate it that way, but I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not the real Stephanie. It just seems like, I mean, she's got the glasses. She looks like the comic book version. And, yeah, she's showing some genuine care for Yumiko's people, which, you know, this random secretary probably couldn't care less, you know, if she wasn't the real Stephanie. Yeah, and then we get, Yumiko sits down, and then she's looking through this book of, like, villas, and I'm like, why? I don't know. I don't know what the point of this shot was, to be honest. Now we're in the prison cell with Eugene, and again, it's still the consistency. Like, he's not acting as scared as he was last time he was locked up, even though now he has more reason to be scared than he did before, right? So, and then he decides to give up Alexandria. I think makes sense, because at this point, I mean, the Commonwealth doesn't seem like the type to just go and wipe them out or take them over. And, I mean, Eugene has shown that there isn't really much there for them to take. Yeah, and then this is the sick wife and the family that they find. And, you know, I'm a little curious how they survived for 10 years. I mean, we're 10 years in the apocalypse, and it's just the three of them. So there's a story there. You know, they were probably with the group at some point. I mean, they're not just surviving in this basement forever. So, you know, I don't know that we can really just. I can't just sit back and buy random survivors like this 10 years into the apocalypse without, you know, some source of food or something, man. So I don't know. This, it seems a little odd, and it's just trying to get us to care for Leia, I guess. But again, like I said, she turns on her morality on and off when it's convenient, so that's not a character I find terribly sympathetic. So, and then we get this is a great looking Walker. I think the makeup was excellent, but we're supposed to have this emotional connection with Cole and her, and I just, you know, I couldn't care less, man. I really couldn't. Uh, it did kind of remind me of the Morgan scene in the first episode, the pilot episode, but like I said, they did the work to make us care about Morgan at that point, and that was just such an emotional moment. And this is just like such a shallow rehash of all that. So, you know, I don't know, it didn't work for me. But I did like this last aerial shot where they're being like the Whispers and they're mounting an attack on the Reapers. Of course, a bunch of these are digital walkers. It doesn't look quite as realistic as they usually do, or maybe I don't know if it's because I'm looking at it on streaming with a computer monitor as opposed to watching it on TV. But yeah, I mean it's all good. So, you know, I'm curious to see how the finale goes. But again, the Reaper storyline just didn't really do it for me. And, you know, I don't think my mind's going to change in the finale. So, overall, I did my ranking of all the seasons of Walking Dead so far. And if these 8 episodes, I haven't seen episode 8, obviously, but if these 8 episodes were being ranked, I'd put them dead last. Dead last. I don't know, it's been a big drop in quality, and the writing isn't there, and I don't know. I just didn't care for it too much this whole season. I mean, there's a couple standout moments. The Gollum dudes from the last episode was really cool, and a few things I liked here and there. I liked some of the action in the subway and stuff like that. But yeah, the thematic core, nothing's really sticking the landing for me, and there's no great character moments, no great arcs, nothing really crazy going on. So yeah, overall, you know, I'm not really feeling too great about this season, and I hope things improve in part 2. We will see next year. And I will definitely be reviewing those when they come out. So be sure to stay subscribed to this channel. Give me a like and a thumbs up and all that. Definitely leave a comment if you disagree with anything I said in this video. I would love to talk to you guys about it. Genuinely, I would love to have conversations in the comments. So yeah, if you have anything to say, please let me know. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you next week for the finale. Peace out, everybody.